you want to move to Texas?
We're just kind of, it's interesting, we're just kind of done here. The
Oh,
economy is horrible at the moment. Political freedom is horrible. So my husband got a job with Amazon in Austin. So
wow.
yeah, so he
That
moved 2 weeks ago.
interesting.
And myself and the kids will move in about a month.
If you're in Nigeria, do you have the ability to live in other countries in Africa? Like if you said, hey, I want to move to Ghana.
You do. So you can, but you still have to apply for like a residency. You can travel visa free to like there's a group of West African countries called ECOWAS. Um, and it's supposed to be like how, the EU is to be able to live, work, without any bureaucracy and what have you. But in reality, there is some admin that you have to do. But it's easier than, say, for a Nigerian just to up and leave and say they want to move to the US. It's a lot easier.
Really? Wow. That's interesting. I didn't know that. All right. We're going to kick it off. I'm recording right now. So let's kick it. This is the Oglesby and Scott Show. My name is Charles Oglesby. We have Rashana Scott here from Chicago, the Realtor of the Year. Welcome to the show, Rashana. How you doing? Rashana, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks. How are you?
Good. So we have a special guest today. She goes by the name Nikki Anani. She is an entrepreneur and she is a consultant. She was rated as a top 100 family business consultant globally. She helps her clients bridge the gap between the senior and younger generations. As a result, they communicate, collaborate, and collectively gain clarity to increase profit and productivity in their family business, which is great because we literally just got off a call with somebody who was talking about how the older generation can leave you money, but if they don't teach you how to manage that money or manage that business, you'll lose it. So welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, Charles, Rashona. Thank you for having me. I'm well.
So the first question I ask is, outside of the bio that I just read, who are you and where are you from?
Nikki Anani. I am an entrepreneur. I am a second generation family business owner. I am from Lagos, Nigeria, all the way in Africa. That's who I am and where I'm from. I'm also a mom of 2 boys, age 6 and 3, and a wife. Just trying to live through this pandemic, like all of us.
Yeah. How has the pandemic been in Nigeria? Like, we know how it's been in California. It's terrible, just ridiculous. Were things shut down? Masks? What was it like in Africa?
So it was worse than we expected, to be perfectly honest with you. I think a lot of myself, my friends, and the business community here, we thought this would be a Western problem. And the issue we would face would be the economic impact of the rest of the world shutting down. But it came on the continent April last year, and it evolved from a public health crisis to an economic crisis. Nigeria is in the worst recession in 40 years, to then personal tragedy. The start of this year, January, there was a horrible second wave. And I personally lost 4 family members, family and friends, in January. So it came very, very close to home. We had 3 shutdowns, mandatory mask wearing, but since about March, there's been like a relaxing of that, and schools went back, churches went back, social events and things. So there's an easing of it, and the vaccines have been, circulated and things like that. So fingers crossed, touch wood, we've seen the worst of it. It's not been as bad as in the States. The numbers are not as bad as in the States from numbers of cases and numbers of deaths. Some say it's because they're not testing as much. The data is not as strong, but for whatever reason, for sure, even just looking at like from my inner circle, the number of cases and the number of deaths has gone down significantly since January.
Awesome. Well, not awesome, but that's a good answer. What was life like growing up? I know we just hopped around this, but sometimes I ask questions because I don't want to forget my question. So usually our second question is, what was life like growing up?
I love that question because
no, usually that's the first question.
Well, I changed the format because it's kind of weird to ask somebody what was life like growing up and then to ask them who are they and where are they from.
Yeah,
it's
true. Life was good, eh? I mean, I grew up in Lagos, in Nigeria, from birth, and I really, really loved it. I was super close to my extended family. My cousins were always around the corner. Mom and dad. My dad was a bit of a workaholic. He'd started a business the year I was born, so he was always gone. But my mom was always there. My brothers and I, we had a lovely, lovely childhood, just always felt safe, always felt secure, always felt like we belonged, right? And this was until Nigeria has had a very shaky economy for many years. And in the 90s, it got particularly unsafe because there was a lot of violent crime for people that didn't have money, and they would break into houses, get very violent, and just to steal whatever they could steal. And that we had an unfortunate incident in 95. I'll never forget the day, 1st of October, 1995. 30 armed men broke into our house. And let's just save the details, but it was very traumatic. And shortly after, my father and my mom, we were British citizens, all of us, because my mom and dad were both born in the UK. And so my father and my mom secretly planned our exit to the UK without telling us kids. So months later, we thought we were going on a summer holiday to the UK, which we often did. We were actually moving there permanently. So that was a very significant event in my life. So summer of 96, I thought I was going to the UK for 6 weeks, and that was a permanent move. But hey, you're a child, you adapt, you thrive, and that was my thrusting into a world where I felt like I didn't belong. Because we didn't move to London, where it's very cosmopolitan, very diverse, lots of Nigerians and Africans and Caribbeans. We moved to a small town where it was very Caucasian. I went to an all-girls school. I was bullied. It took me a long time to get comfortable with not being comfortable. But you adapt, right? And I learned to navigate feeling like a misfit. I learned to navigate this feeling of straddling two worlds, the British world outside my doorstep and the very Nigerian world when I'd come into my doorstep. But I really believe that experience shaped me to who I am today, and actually was a blessing and not actually a curse. I didn't experience much outright racism, thankfully. I did when we first moved, and it was snide comments, it was jokes in school. But by and large, my experience was largely positive. It was more kind of those microaggressions. It was more, just feeling like my culture didn't have a place and feeling like I didn't have a place. So I had to wrestle with a lot of those thoughts. Went to university in London, worked in corporate for a few years in accountancy, but I felt it wasn't my passion, and I felt it was a very hollow experience. And I felt a deep longing for more, but I couldn't tell you what that more was. So all this whilst myself, my brothers and my mum were in the UK, my dad was back in Nigeria building out this business, and he would visit us, we would visit him as well. So I remember speaking to him whilst at work, and I was like, you know what? I really don't know what I want to do in my life. I know it's not this, but I don't know what it is. And he suggested, why don't you come to Nigeria for a few months? Like, come outside of these offices, come and see the real world, in his words. Maybe you're just bored. I was like, probably, let's do that then. And what I agreed to do was to come to Nigeria for 3 months, go traveling for 6 months, go to business school. That buys me about 3 years to figure out my life and know what I want to do, and then apply for a job in the UK. But God had other plans. I came to Nigeria, and at the end of the 3 months, I never left. And 10 years later, here I am.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So I found it so energetic, so like on fire. And it lit me up in a way that the City of London never did. And, that feeling of being a misfit, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it completely was gone away when I moved back, because then I was like this British Nigerian, navigating, there's a very Western side to me, there's a very Nigerian side to me. So I didn't exactly fit in, but you know what, for the first time in decades, I was amongst people that were like myself. I didn't have to explain my name. I didn't have to, explain my food. I didn't have to twist my tongue. I really felt permitted and in fact celebrated. And it was such an amazing feeling. So I felt a sense of agency, despite being a young female, to take up opportunities. All I saw was just opportunities. So I started working with my father in our family business, started informally, moved to formal. And so our business is in construction, in real estate, and in engineering. And then also started a family office to manage our investments, because over the years, he'd been investing very, very informally in all sorts. And it was like this very complex structure without a structure. He'd just been doing it on his own. So
that's like me.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Charles
he
owns everything.
all over the place. Yeah, like
he
everything.
invests in everything.
Like it was like from tech, blockchain to like a small SME manufacturer from their home.
Trucks,
like it was
barbershops.
Yeah, like it was just like
real
across
estate.
the board. Infrastructure, like
vending
I was
machines.
So I helped with that and set up like a structure, managed it, hired a team to manage the investments. And that was my journey into the world of family business. And it was an eye-opener that, this is how we can build generational wealth, both on the continent in Africa and in her diaspora. The reason why we haven't seen much generational wealth is because we haven't focused on generational entrepreneurship. And that is essentially family business. That's what it is.
So when I read your bio, listen, I was so excited to talk to you, because when in the bio it said, you specialize in building generational businesses and wealth. And I was like, okay, it hit me, because all day long on social media and just even in our conversations, all you hear is generational wealth, generational wealth, generational wealth. But the key, is obviously what you focus on, right? Generational businesses, generational entrepreneurship, which leads to generational wealth building, which is a conversation that we have all the time, right? So it's not like it's a new concept, but I think the fact that you are intentionally saying, hey guys, this is where we need to focus, I'm so excited to dive deep into that and talk more about that here, because I truly believe like this is the conversation that we need to be having. And I'm sure a lot of our questions a lot of our listeners are going to ask the question of how, right? So how do I, talk to my mom, talk to my dad? How do I change mindsets of those that I love and those that, have a complete, different upbringing than I do, right? Like now we're in 21st century, we have social media, we have all of these different ways of, making money online and things like that. Like how do you change sometimes the thinking of those that, come before you when you're starting from ground zero, you're starting from scratch, right? And you're trying to bring those up as well as impact and inspire future generations?
That's a powerful, great question. The truth is, as an entrepreneur, you're called to be a pioneer. And as a pioneer, you are a visionary. You're seeing things that other people can't see, and you're bringing them out into life through, you've seen it in your mind's eye. Now you need to bring it out into the physical eye. And because you're seeing it in your mind's eye, other people can't see what you're seeing in your mind's eye. They'll be like, she's crazy. She's risking all her time, her energy into this thing, which is just a fad. Why don't you get a job? The challenge we face in the Black community is that historically we've seen a lot of poverty. And so we flee to security, we flee to safety, and it's safe, it's comfortable to get a 9 to 5. Well, it was until March 2020 when COVID hit, and we've been disproportionately affected by the pandemic. So now we have to, there's a saying in Igbo language, which is a Nigerian language, that whenever you wake up is your morning, which means whenever you gain clarity is when your life literally, that's when you start your day, right? And for a lot of people, they need to wake up, they're still sleeping. They're still in the past dispensation where you got your nice, tidy corporate job, you bought your house, you and your 2.4 kids, and you had a nice pension, retirement, and you passed away and you passed on whatever was left of that. But we're in a different dispensation. To be able to navigate this choppy economy, this choppy, disrupted industry, folks have to be entrepreneurs. Folks need multiple streams of income. And you're gonna have to be a change agent to carry folks along with you, to explain to them that the times have changed. To be able to be future relevant, we need to know how the skills of making money. That might mean building a business with your hands, but that also might mean passive investing, right? Like you're alluding to, Charles, invest a lot in different things, right? So yeah, it's having that conviction of mind, being able to influence and persuade others around you. But sometimes that in itself can be a distraction. Not everyone that's around you is going on this journey with you, metaphorically, right? Some need to see the success to then believe the vision and believe the mission that you're called to, right? But it's, as you're going on this journey, when you're starting this journey, you're pursuing legacy. Legacy is not built in a day. Legacy means you're sowing seeds in the soil, you're tilling seeds, tilling the ground, you're putting in the hard work. Guess what? You might not see that tree when it comes out, but it's for the future generations. So your children will see it, the full extent of it. Your grandchildren will see the full extent of it, because it's important that as a community, we free ourselves from generational poverty. Whether it's absolute poverty, which is what I see on this side of the world, where 86 million Nigerians live on less than $5 a day. 86 million. We have, if I drive out, I live in quite a well-to-do estate. If I drive out within a mile, I can guarantee you my car will be surrounded by 10 guys begging for money, destitute, with nowhere to live, have no clue where they're gonna get money to eat, shelter. So we have high levels of absolute poverty over here. In the States, there's also a high level of absolute poverty within the Black community, but also high levels of relative poverty. So it's important that we're able to articulate to ourselves in our hearts, why are we doing this? And to others around us in our community, this is the why. Because as a community, we need to move upwards. It's not just about the money, right? The money frees us from poverty, but the money does more than that. There's a mental poverty we suffer from when we don't have the coin. We are disempowered. We're left out of rooms. There are conversations that are being held by those that are powerful in deciding the future of our world, in deciding the solutions that are going to happen. And in this world, right, I think it's important that we're not left out of conversations. We've been left out of too many conversations. Institutions have been designed for everybody else but us. It's time we get in the room. And unfortunately, in the world that we're in, we know that wealth gives you access. Wealth gives you that social capital. so that our world is truly for us. So we're not, we Africans particularly, we've been left out of so many global conversations, and we need to really change that from the way we approach business. It's not a hustle. It's not just for today. It's for a legacy. It's not just for you. It's for your community. And remember why it is that we're doing what we're doing.
So you are a second generation entrepreneur. Did you take over the business that your father was running?
So my father he'll be 60 next year. So he's still very young. And as I said to you, I moved into the States in 6 weeks. So interestingly, 10 years ago, I moved to Nigeria from London, and I was very heavily involved. I was a director. My dad was still the president or CEO. And I had a significant amount of responsibility. But over the years, when I started doing other things, started consulting with families, I moved from being the operator to being an owner, being, in the office. So the analogy I give is the operator needs to be on the machine so that the machine will work and make the money come out. But the owner is behind the scenes and directing the resources, directing human capital, financial capital to see that these machines are able to work efficiently to meet his or her goals. And as family businesses scale and move to generations, families need to move from being conscious operators to being conscious owners. It does mean that you need to learn the art of delegation, learn the art and the skill of strategy. It becomes more complicated. It's not easier. A lot of people think, oh yeah, you don't have to go to the office. You got it easy. Nah, it's complex because I've got like a million tabs in my head at any given point in time, right? So to answer your question, I came in, was very, very heavily involved for a good 8 years. In the last 2 years, I've transitioned. I'm being just board member, owner, and particularly now with the move to the States, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to be just round the corner from the business, from all my staff and what have you. We really are now kind of moved to become a lot more formal, institutionalized, which I'm really excited about. I'm excited about a new transition. It actually means that I can grow the empire beyond just being Africa-centric, diversify, look at other ventures in the States, investing and or building new ventures. So my father's still the CEO. Plan is, our succession plan is we've got a strong team of non-family staff that will take over from him. Myself and my brothers jointly will own the business. Actually, we've done the succession already to our generation. And we have been developing the skills to be conscious owners that can steer this business towards being future relevant and future proofed.
So the reason why I asked that question is because a lot of times people will see like a successful business and they'll say, well, I need to create my own successful business, instead of saying, hey, let me help this family business become more successful. What do you think they should be doing? Because, I mean, we see it. I think that people take like the employee mindset and they're like, well, this is my job. And then they translate like, this is my business. Do you think that's a hindrance? Do you think that is preventing the generational wealth that you're talking about?
So do you mean like, say if I leave my family business and then I go set something up on my own?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Say me and my brothers part ways and we... So there is a huge benefit to staying together. It's not always possible for families to stay together in business. There's a collective wisdom, there's collective knowledge, there's collective, you were alluding to it, that we need to learn how to pass on the greatest legacy I believe we can pass to the next generation is the know-how to build business. So the legacy of entrepreneurship, of entrepreneurial leadership, right? Now, for folks to come together and stay together, it's not easy because a lot of the time there can be, conflict when it comes to family and business, and navigating those, it can feel easier to want to go set up one's own thing. But think about it this way. There's economies of scale when you put more capital together. there's power in your collective coalition, because you all see things differently. We're all like, diversity is life, diversity of thought is powerful, and it's in the coming together that you can actually unleash greater power. So you can actually form a structure such that you enable autonomy. Nike can go off and set up her own thing wherever, but it's still a collective ownership. So you benefit from the collective wisdom, the collective financial capital, and we call it intrapreneurship within the family enterprise. So the three of us can jointly own it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So we, for instance, there could be a pot of money that we jointly own. And then we say, okay, if someone wants to start off a venture, we're going to lend X amount to them to start up their venture. And then over time, we would, maybe we'll have X number of shares or what have you. You can structure these things such that everyone wins. You have your autonomy, you have your freedom, but then also we have that collective thought, collective envisioning, and yeah, we can benefit from that diversity of thought. It's important.
So everyone essentially like puts money into a pot, and then when someone has an idea, so to speak, you guys like take turns supporting in and investing in that idea or that venture.
I would just preface that by saying that that's based on the assumption that folks have the entrepreneurial capacity to do so. So myself and my brothers have been, people say entrepreneurship is either taught or caught. It's been taught and caught in our household, because we've watched our father for the past 34 years, like beast it, building different businesses, and he's taken us under his wing. I worked with him for 10 years, like literally every day. My brothers are not involved in the business, but he still mentors and guides them, and we take investment decisions together. So we've built up a lot of capacity. I have an economics degree. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm part of business networks. I've been on countless trainings, same as my brothers, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that this is for any family, right? You don't just, you have to, give money to those that can be trusted with money, that have the competence and the confidence as well to build. So I'm saying that folks don't necessarily need to go in 5 different directions. You can actually come together, collectively build an enterprise together. But that requires unity of purpose, unity of vision, unity of mission, unity of values. And often we focus on the doing. We don't focus on the being. We need to stop and kind of pause and reflect. What is the compelling reason for us to stay in business together? Because it's beyond just what we're doing. It's beyond just making the money. Because if it's about the money, I can find you many other opportunities that will make me more money than staying in business with my parents, right? I can put money in crypto. I can put money in different things, right? But there has to be a strong bond where it's like, you know what? I can't get this from anywhere else. And so this is the reason why we are staying together. So folks need to reflect on that. What is it that we're trying to achieve? Both from a money perspective, what legacy is it that we're really trying to leave? Because legacy is, we throw that word, it sounds sexy, we put it on social media, but when we say that, really, what legacy does Charles want to leave? What legacy does Rashona want to leave? What legacy do you want to leave as a family? Because you have your individual purposes, right? But then you also have your collective purpose. What is that collective purpose? Is it that you're called to transform communities? You are called to incubate entrepreneurship ventures and invest in projects that would see a transformation of your community. That could be your legacy, right? But it's important that we gain that clarity. That acts as a bond, that acts as a glue, because there will be times where it's tough. There will be times of conflict. There'll be times when the industry goes south. There'll be time where there's no money. And in such seasons, it's easy to want to flee as opposed to want to, come together.
That was good.
What?
I'm definitely hearing you say, one, not as a prerequisite, but definitely as an add-on is having a skill set, whatever that skill set may be, right? And Charles talks about this often where, so many people want to go around bashing like 9 to 5 and bashing corporate, where like you actually learn pertinent skill set at, those organizations that you can bring back home, that you can bring, back to the family business. So I definitely hear you speaking on that. And then the other one I hear is humility, right? Because at the end of the day, knowing that, we're a better collective together. And like you said, you can go off and you can have individual goals, but at the end of the day, like you said, generational wealth starts by generational businesses. And the only way to have, build, and lead and maintain a generational business is to work together within your generation, right? Work with who you have right there in the present, right? Because like you said, if we are all collectively working for our last name, we all share the same last name. So the work that we all do today, our future generations, 2-3 generations from now with the same last name are going to benefit from that.
So you, outside of what you're doing with your family, you also consult and work with other business owners who are looking to pass down their business to their heirs. What are some of the tips that you give them that can help them with that process?
So when we're talking about passing on from one generation to another, a lot of people think that I'll be talking about entrepreneurship skills and what have you. Those are very important, foundational, necessary. The challenge we often see between passing from generation to another is generational divides, generational disconnects, generational dysfunction. So usually what happens is founder, like my father's built up a business for 30 years. This business is like their baby, literally. And actually, science has proven that entrepreneurs, if you present images of their child and if you present images of their business, it lights up the same neural pathways in their brains. So they get the same feeling of belonging, community, that same, love, affection towards their businesses as they have towards their literal babies. So it's not, when we say a business is a baby, there's a reason for it, right?
I literally just gave that analogy on Instagram Live. I was talking about how your expectations for your business in the early phases, because it's so young, are different than when it's a mature business. And when it can start contributing back to you as opposed to when you're just contributing it to it. So,
yeah. And so just imagine, then 30 years later, you've built this business. This business is it's a proxy. You've got identity, significance, spin, and activity. And then you're asked to, you want to pull away and retire. It causes a lot of stress and anxiety because essentially you're anticipating so much loss of identity, loss of purpose, loss of significance. And it's really hard for founders to let go. On the other side, you've got next generation that, like myself, maybe have worked in corporate, have gotten better education than their parents because they were more affluent growing up than their parents, right? Have great ideas, new ideas, and want to be able to implement these ideas and make a stamp on the business, whether it's like technology, innovation, diversity and inclusion, sustainability, but they don't have the space to do so because mom and dad are still kind of hugging this thing. So that usually is a major issue we face as families are moving through generation to generation. And I always say to founders, or firstly to the next generation, to have and gain an understanding of the situation that your parents are in. It's important to develop empathy. It's important that we are a connected family. And one of the meanings of connect, actually in the 19th century, it was updated to add empathy is what connection means. So we have to have empathy towards one another. And what does it mean to really have empathy? Is to understand what the next person is seeing, thinking, feeling. understand their fears, as well as understand their dreams and their aspirations. And as a retiring founder, a founder is going through anticipatory grief. They're scared of dying because the fear of mortality becomes more and more like, they become more and more aware of their own mortality, and they're getting scared. They're scared of losing that significance. They're scared of losing that identity. They're scared of losing that activity. But so they're essentially going through grief. And it's that grief. Grief can make you very sad. Grief can make you very angry. I would know. When I lost all my friends and family, I went through a season of anger. I was just like raving. Grief can have strange effects. So it doesn't necessarily take the form that we are used to seeing it, like what's said in the media, right? Grief can make you hold on tighter to what it is you love, make it harder for you to let go. So gaining an understanding that a lot of folks are going through grief makes you develop empathy and be able to what's the word, have more an allowance for them, rather than get angry and inflamed. Dad, you're not letting go of this business, you're still hugging it, I can't get a word in, and then creating conflict. So that's one. And then on the side of the founders is to understand that your children have gone out into the world and gotten the best of exposure, and they often feel like they can't compare to you. They feel like they're living in your shadow. You've got this huge, amazing ability to build business, but oftentimes it's quite intimidating for them. They feel like they can't be the next version of you. But guess what? They haven't had the chance to even test their leadership because you're hugging so tightly to this business. Leadership is like a stage, right? We're like actors. We need to perfect the art of entrepreneurial leadership by consistent rehearsing. So you're not just backstage doing makeup and then tomorrow you're then asked to go be the lead actor. It doesn't work that way. If you're in that situation and you know that at any moment in time, the director might say, stop doing makeup, come out and be the main actor, you will have a lot of anxiety and fear towards that. And so a lot of next generation, they have a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. They feel like they're not confident. They don't know whether they can actually take this business to the next level, despite the fact that they want to. So it's to get each generation to develop deep empathy for one another and start to communicate effectively with one another, so that they can actually collaborate with one another and move forward together with the legacy enterprise.
I'm hearing you say that, and it makes me wonder if those are the things that drive the dysfunction that you said you're seeing in business. The lack of empathy, maybe the feeling like they can't live up to that person's shadow, holding on to the business too tight. Like, does that result in the other issues, maybe just speaking harshly to people, not willing to coach and train, all those different things that could prevent that business from passing from hand to hand?
You're right. There's also often a lack of awareness. So as a founder, typically what happens is you are type A personalities, very high achieving, very, very high achieving. So founders tend to surround themselves by helpers. So I don't need you to know the vision. You just need to implement. Just do what I tell you to do, as opposed to builders, so co-builders, right? And they're in a former generation. That's the leadership style of the older generation, positional leadership, authoritarian type leadership. It all kind of is originated from strong military influence because baby boomers were kind of in that era, right? Next generation, on the other hand, are more collaborative style leadership. And what they desire is actually, let's all come together and let's build together. They get quite intimidated by this idea of this positional leadership. So when we start to explain it to folks, to gain an understanding that the reason why this business is as it is because of X. Now we need to take, first step is awareness, then second step is action. We need to take concrete steps to create the conducive environment that will bring out the best in folks around you and the best in your kids. Because when we move from, I give an analogy, it's like moving from a dictatorship to a democracy. In a dictatorship, the king or the military head of state has all the power. He has all the ideas. Everyone just kind of nods in compliance. Yes, sir. We should do this. Okay. He or she rules by decree. So it just gives out orders and it just gets done, right? But in a democracy, it's more of a consultative environment where there's constant feedback from citizens, where citizens feel like they have a greater voice in the running of the country, where citizens are able to provide feedback and citizens are able to partake in the governance system. So what happens is they have a greater sense of ownership, of belonging, and they go over and above. So we need to move the family from a strong, controlling, founder-centric business to a collaborative culture.
So I have I ordered some food and I have the food coming downstairs. It says it's 3 minutes away, but that doesn't make any sense because on the map it looks really far from here. I had two other questions that I want to ask you, and I'm so conflicted because I want to. Maybe he'll wait. He'll wait.
Wait, let's go ahead and finish.
All right,
go ahead, keep going.
Let's power through this.
All right, and our podcast editor will edit that.
Yeah, he'll get this. We're not tacky. So I have a question for you. You mentioned, it sounds like you mentioned this, but so my son, I want him to do what I do, but it sounds like what motivates me might not be in him because his life isn't going to be like what I experienced on purpose. How do you get him to that point? How do you get him to the point where he does have that in him?
Does he need that in him? He won't have that in him. Sorry, I can't make that sound, but because you went on a journey to wealth. He was born into a certain level of standard of living, and that's his reality. A lot of the time we look to our past, what we did in our past, and attribute those factors as that's going to be what's going to lead to our success in the future, but they're not always the same. He's in a different situation, right?
That's so true.
He's in a different world, right?
That is so true.
The most important thing is what I see a lot in the African side. I don't know if it's the same in the African American community. Founders shield their children away from the businesses. But the children, they can't love what they don't know. They can't honor, they can't appreciate what they don't know. Is exposing your son to, from an early age, kids are perceptive. Kids, they know what's going on, right? Once they see it. Taking him to work, explaining things to him, and then building the appreciation for the value for money, the value for hard work, the value for humility, the value for harmony. Giving him that baseline exposure. His world is different. He has access to certain things that you didn't when you were his age. So there are also benefits of there are benefits to his situation. Let's not just look at the negative aspect to it, right? Quite often what you see is second generations, it's not about, I need bread to eat. Now they start to have this deep hunger for, we need to make an impact as a family. We need to think about sustainability. We need to transform communities. We need to start getting into philanthropic work, sustainable investing. It's less about we need to put food on the table, and it's more about we need to make a great impact. And I think that's really quite admirable, to be perfectly honest. The key is there's a lot of skills he needs to learn. He needs to learn entrepreneurship skills. He needs to learn stewardship skills, because now he's going to be a steward of wealth to be able to pass it on to the next generation. He needs to not be we need to blow it, we need to show it, but it's we need to treasure it, we need to grow it, we need to multiply it, we need to pass it.
I like it. So it's not even like, a lot of times we think that it's that grit that pushes you to get wealth. And this is what I always tell people, because a lot of times in the African American community, we think that like, in order for me to motivate you, young man, I have to give you nothing. And if I give you nothing, then you'll be motivated to go get it. And I've always thought that was just ridiculous. I've always thought that, like, you see people who go to the top universities, who start these companies, who build these companies, they weren't put out there to struggle. Exactly. They gave them everything, and they still went out there and became billionaires. They, like, Bill Gates' parents, Zuck's parents, they were well off. You don't get into Harvard unless you're well off. And so what I'm hearing, and this is really refreshing, is he doesn't have to struggle or have what I have inside of me to still do great things. Exactly. And that is so powerful. I don't want to hold you up. Man, you're such, I think you're like the only person who's really been on the show who's like comes from legacy wealth, like real life legacy wealth. Like, we have a lot of people who have built it, but we don't have a lot of people who have gone through this process. So I definitely appreciate you for coming on. There are so many other questions that I can ask you. If you want, we can schedule an Instagram live. These days, you can do multiple person Instagram live, so we can make that happen.
I'm coming.
Yeah. That would be cool. And I'll be over in your side of the world very soon. So yeah.
So where can people find you? Where can they follow you? And where can they support what you have going on?
My website has everything. So nikkianani.com. If you want to talk, you can schedule a call, just email me. And on my website also, all the links to my socials are there. I'm also a podcast host, The Connected Generation with Nikki Anani. We talk about all things legacy business, from how do you raise kids into wealth? How do you build financial freedom? How do you deal with these generational dysfunctions and building a bridge between generations? How do you deal with sustainable impacts, philanthropy, all sorts of conversations, personal leadership, all sorts. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We'll definitely have all your links inside of the show notes. As always, leave us a rating, leave us a review, and subscribe. We got to move up in the ranks. We got folks out here beating Susie Orman, beating Dave Ramsey. I'm trying to get those kind of numbers. So, like I said, we'll have all her links in the show notes. Super powerful episode, super enlightening episode. So many other questions I could have asked you, and I will ask you because we're going to do an Instagram live.
Awesome.
But my name is Charles Ogleby, and we got Rashawn Scott, the Realtor of the Year from Chicago, and we are signing off. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was really awesome. Really awesome. So yeah, I can't wait for this Instagram live because I was over here taking notes and I have follow-up questions too. So this was really, really awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right, you guys.
Take care.
Later.
Bye.